at this time by Mr. Bowers.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So you're a toxicology oxycologist?
No, I'm a forensic toxicologist.
Forensic toxicologist, thank you. And so, and you stated that the reason why you're here is to show the flaws in the people's case?
The flaws in the evidence you're using, yes.
Okay, thank you. And you stated that to adequately be able to assess some of these situations, you need both a toxicology degree and a law degree. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
That's not exactly what I said. I said modernly, the trend is you have a background in law and science, so they have dual degree programs where you get a law degree and a master's of science in forensics at the same time.
Okay, but do you think that that's necessary for people to be able to assess these types of situations, like law enforcement officers, for instance?
Law enforcement officers don't do forensic analyses in courts.
Correct, but they have to make these types of determinations, right? These determinations in the field for FSTs, PAS device administration, and then when they get to the station, they have to do like a data master reading, right?
I think we're confusing testing as opposed to the forensic analysis of the data.
Yes.
I was speaking about the forensic analysis of the data and deciding what testimony to present, that would require a background in law and science. That's not what the officers are doing.
So that's more of a point towards the criminalist, not the officer.
Objection vague.
Well, do you understand the question as phrased, sir?
I'll try.
The court believes it's trying to draw a distinction between the criminalist and yourself as opposed to the officer and yourself. Is that the distinction you're making?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Can you rephrase on your question, though, for Mr. Okorocha?
Sure.
Answer in light of that clarification.
What separates yourself with your background training experience from a criminalist?
I'm nothing like a criminalist.
Okay.
The criminalists have, for example, yours has never taken a single class in toxicology, pharmacology, nor forensics, and none of those three words appear anywhere on his academic transcript. He works in a lab and fills vials with blood, puts them in a carousel, and presses a button. And then he comes in here and he's all of a sudden knowledgeable in pharmacology and toxicology because he was trained by other incompetent people at the same lab.
Okay. And so he doesn't have to calibrate that instrument?
Sorry, what instrument and who are we talking about?
So this hypothetical instrument that you just spoke about of putting blood into a machine and then pushing a button, right? He's not calibrating that mechanism?
No, and it's not a machine, it's an instrument. And the calibration is done at the same time because some of the vials are calibrators. So they'll have, a BAC of alcohol content of a 0.03, 0.06, 0.09, 0.12. And all the vials run all at the same time. It's completely automated. It's sort of like if you're using a copy machine. You put the paper in a feeder and it comes out. There's nothing to look at when it's going on.
So there's no accuracy in these cases that criminalists would have to verify or check?
Accuracy with respect to blood or breath tests, or
with either, just in general with working with these instruments, I mean, isn't there some sort of check or maintenance that is done by the criminalist?
Maintenance on the instrument?
Yeah.
No, you would want to call the factory engineer. You don't want them monkeying around with the instrument.
Okay,
just by way of reference, you're referring to the data master.
Okay, so
No,
specifically...
just want to make sure you're referring to, just so,
so specifically for the...
No,
well, his contention, Your Honor, was originally to the criminalists in these cases,
no, of
and
course.
he mentioned blood.
The court is just trying to clarify so that we don't have cross purposes here. You're asking him about the data master, correct?
Now I can, yeah.
Oh, no, just clarify. So make sure he's responding to the question you put to him as
Okay,
opposed
so
to
specifically
ships
for the
crossing the
data
night.
master, sir. So there's tests to ensure accuracy of that instrument, is that right?
They do accuracy checks.
Okay, and does a criminalist do that or does somebody else do it?
I guess it depends on the jurisdiction. I believe the criminalist does in California.
Okay, so generally it's not just, their job description isn't necessarily just putting something into an instrument and then pushing a button. Their job description actually includes a little bit more than that. Is that right?
Yes, they spend an extra 5 minutes a week checking the calibration of the data master.
Thank you, sir. And you said people with no degree can run these machines. Is that
They're
right?
instruments, they're not machines.
Excuse me, I apologize. Thank you for correcting me. But you said that people without degrees can run these instruments. Is that right?
People without any science background run these instruments.
Okay. And you cited a situation in which you know, like laboratories that you work in, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what laboratory is that?
AK&A Labs.
Okay.
Another one is A&T. They closed, but they had labs in Orange County and Thousand Oaks.
So are you still associated with A&T despite it closing in this this nearby location?
No, those guys moved away during COVID.
Okay.
The two cousins that owned them. I still work for AK&A Labs.
Okay. And what kind of lab is that?
They do alcohol, drugs, DNA. I don't have any involvement in any of that.
How big of a lab is it?
I don't know. Some of it is outsourced, some of it's in-house. I don't know the size.
Okay. And do you make trips down to San Diego often, or what do you do in relation to that laboratory?
I analyze data that the laboratory produces, or people call the laboratory, for example, attorneys, when they have questions about certain results, and then they turn them over to me to analyze the results.
Okay. And you spoke briefly about the HGN test. So you said that it's really difficult in the field to be able to adequately assess horizontal gaze nystagmus. Is that right? If not impossible, per your words?
Yes, especially when you don't have somebody qualified to do so.
Okay. But can you see lack of smooth pursuit despite not being in like a controlled environment?
I think my issue is distinguishing what you're seeing from other things.
Okay. So you can see a lack of smooth pursuit, right? In some cases.
Yes, you can see just about anything.
Okay. But your contention is that does not necessarily mean that a person's impaired.
That has nothing to do with impairment. Even according to NHTSA, it's only to predict BAC, which it doesn't. But no, that has nothing to do with impairment.
Okay, so California, in implementing that test in field sobriety tests, has got it wrong, and you got it right.
Wrong. The real scientists who aren't research psychologists with PhDs in rats have studied these things. And I ask you, can I please read from the leading medical ophthalmological textbook on this test and read it to the jury just so everybody knows?
No, that's not the question, sir.
Oh, you don't? Well, all right. If you want the science, I got it.
Okay. So, and you said pupil dilation does not show impairment?
No.
Not at all. Can it even be an indication?
Okay. If you're going to start measuring pupils and say this size means this or this size means that, you would need to standardize the amount of light. For example, you're talking about candela and lumens. If you can't just say it's room light and that's what they look like. What is room light? All lights are different. They're in different casings. None of it's standardized anyway. But dilated pupils is not something that, oh, the pupils are dilated, he must be intoxicated. That's completely untrue. And pupil size varies by age. There's many factors that go into it.
Sir, I don't think that the contention was that pupil dilation inherently just means that somebody is under the influence of something, but I was asking you if it could be a potential indication.
Not in my opinion.
Okay. And you said that I mean, you gave kind of two answers for how long it takes for alcohol to absorb into the body. Originally, when defense counsel asked you, you said something to the effect of 2 hours, right? And
Wrong.
then, well, I mean, that's what you did say on the record. However,
You are incorrect.
Wait, hold on. Wait.
I'm not,
Hold on,
I'm not done with the question.
Hold on. Let's first confirm whether he agrees whether he said that or not. If he disagrees, he disagrees. But
Okay.
ask the question, ask him if he recalls saying that.
So do you recall saying that?
That's not what I said.
Okay. So you disagree that that happened. That's fine. So, and then on the next question.
No, Your Honor,
Sir,
if I'm being accused of lying, I should be able to explain my answer.
Wait, please, one at a time, because otherwise we cannot have a good record. Not so much is an accusation of lying, sir. He's asking if you recall saying this or not. If you recall it, fine. If you don't recall it, that's fine. He's not saying you're lying. He's just saying, because remember, he cannot testify. He can ask you a question and you can agree or disagree with the question. Because he's allowed to cross-examine, he can lead. But the question is, if you recall saying that.
That's partially correct. I said 2 to 6 hours. He's narrowing it down to 2 hours.
That's what I was just about to get
That's
to.
why, if you want to clarify your response, that's fine. But again, we don't have to get into arguments. But the question put to you is whether or not you recall saying this, and if you don't recall that, you recall some other statement, go ahead and say it. That's all we're going to do.
I recall saying.
It doesn't have to be a yes or no response.
I recall saying that pursuant to the leading medical toxicology reference textbook, Goldfrank's Toxicologic Emergencies, it takes 2 to 6 hours, and I have a copy of here if you'd like to check it out.
Okay. I was going to follow up that with, then you stated 2 to 6 hours. And that's your position, is that correct? That absorption takes 2 to 6 hours.
I'm saying the accepted medical literature gives, that's the range they give. And it's not disputed.
Okay, thank you. Now, you provided a document showing your expertise in the field of toxicology, which I must say is impressive. It says on this document that you also have a Juris Doctorate degree that you got in 2003, right?
2002.
Excuse me, 2002. And so in 2002, is that, you passed the bar in 2002 as well?
No, I took it without studying it a couple times. Then I studied one time and then I passed it.
That sounds about right. If you don't study for it, it's not going to happen. But
And
yeah,
you go to Vegas the weekend beforehand.
that'll do it. That'll do it. So, so you've been an attorney since, or when did you pass the bar? You took it a couple times.
California, I think I took it in July of 2003.
Okay. So you've been an attorney for over 20 years.
Yes.
And you know the rules of court, and you know how this goes, this back and forth of the questions that I asked are pointed and that you respond with the answer to those questions, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. And so, and then you spoke with defense counsel and you stated that you don't work for the prosecution unless it's in situations to get them out of trouble. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like if your friends and family get DUIs, you guys call me.
I'll give you a call. So do you still practice as an attorney?
Very little.
Okay. But you have a website?
Yes.
And on your website, you say that you're a dual board certified trial attorney?
Yes, I'm the only one in California.
Okay. And what does that mean?
It means, well, there is a requirement of a certain amount of days in trial that you have to keep up with. You have to turn in documents from the state bar. There were evaluations by judges, evaluations by the attorneys you were litigating the case against, and an exam.
Wow. So how many trials have you done?
Over 100.
More than me. So how many DUI trials did you do in those 3 years that you talked to defense counsel about?
Probably 75.
Yeah, that's a lot in 3 years, right?
Yes.
And all of those were as a defense counsel, right?
Correct.
Okay. And the point of being defense counsel is to point out and identify reasonable doubt in the prosecution's case, right?
If there's reasonable doubt, yes, you better point it out.
Okay. But even in cases in which there may not be much, it's still your job to advocate for your client and try to show some reasonable doubt, right?
If there's reasonable doubt, you would point it out. If there isn't, there wouldn't be anything to point out.
Okay. And so when did that happen? That happened somewhere around like after you passed the bar?
What's that, Mr. Miller?
When did you do that time frame of that 3-year DUI trials? When was that?
I think 2007 to 2010.
Okay. And then you got your master's in pharmaceutical sciences in 2012?
Yes.
And then your master's in science and forensic toxicology in 2014, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And was either of those like a 2-year program or a 3-year program?
I was part-time, and there are smarter people who could probably get it done in a year.
Okay. And did you obtain those degrees to specifically become an expert in cases like this?
Not necessarily cases like this, but these and civil cases involving forensic issues.
Okay. And how long have you worked as a criminal defense expert?
I'm not a criminal defense expert.
You're just an expert.
Well, I'm an expert in forensic toxicology.
How long have you worked as an expert in forensic toxicology?
About 18 years, maybe a little longer.
That was before you got your degrees?
Yes.
Okay.
Before I got my master's degree.
Okay. So you were a defense attorney, and then also you did expert testimony. Is that right? During the same period?
Well, the expert testimony was DMV hearings, not courts.
Okay. And how many other scheduled court appearances for the defense in criminal cases have you had, let's say, this week?
Well, today's Wednesday, so I haven't done anything this week except this. And then there's a case in Fresno tomorrow.
Okay. And how many times a month do you testify in criminal cases?
It's very random. The most I ever did was 3 in one day. When I was younger, I could do that, but probably once a week. I'm not sure what the average is.
Okay. And of all these times, it's generally for the defense, right?
Yes, that's who calls me.
Okay. And you do really good work for the defense attorneys who hire you, don't you?
Well, my mom would think so, but I mean, I think it's okay.
And are you getting paid to be here?
I don't believe so, but I believe the defense attorney implied something, so I'm not sure. It's up to the courts. I don't know.
You don't know if you're getting paid to be here?
I don't get paid half the time I testify in indigent cases.
Okay. So you just come to court and testify kind of like pro bono in some situations?
Yes, so people without a lot of money and resources don't get screwed over by the government.
Okay. And so do you have a normal rate that you would give to people who maybe are asking on a private side?
The private side, the rate is the same as my court-appointed rate. For misdemeanor DUI, it's $3,500, and then on felonies, one of the judges, 2 of them signed off on $8,000 for those cases.
Okay. So in a lot of cases, you get paid pretty well.
I mean, you're expert makes 200,000 a year. I don't get really like that much.
Okay. We didn't really get into that. I'm not sure if that's how accurate that is, but I'll take your word for it.
TransparentCalifornia.com.
Thank you. So you've looked up Mr. Leonard Mitchell,
Yes,
and he makes 200K?
over 200K a year. Yeah.
One day. And approximately how many times do you testify in a year?
Civil, criminal, family, any?
All of the above, sir.
50 probably. I don't know.
Okay. And it's your testimony today that, as far as you know, you're not going to get paid for this.
No, I said I don't know. I don't have an order in my file from a court. The attorney implied that there may be a court order. I don't have it, so I don't know. And I did 2 of these last week and didn't get paid for sure. There was no court order.
And is there no way for you to go out and try to get paid for these things?
You can't go to the judge. Hey, Your Honor, I did a good job the other day. Can I have a paycheck? You have to be appointed ahead of time.
Okay. So you are just ordered to come to court, and then sometimes you won't get paid?
No, I'm not ordered, but they asked me, do you want to help somebody who doesn't have a lot of money so they don't get screwed over by the flawed evidence in a case? Can you help us out? And we'll buy lunch sometimes.
Okay. So sometimes they buy you lunch?
Sometimes,
Okay.
yes.
That's nice.
Not enough.
Per your CV, you're not a doctor, correct?
Mr. Barnes, it's 4:15, so we have to break. I'm not sure if you can make Fresno tomorrow, sir, because the people have not finished.